This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel today. My great pleasure to have you along as we cap off, well, what is going to be the final day before free agency as the Edmonton Oilers get set to settle in and get into silly season starting tomorrow morning around, 9 a.m.? I don't know if that's Eastern or Pacific or Mountain or whatever. I don't really care. But friends, we are on the cusp of free agent frenzy once again here this time in the year 2023. Couple of big storylines we're following going in, and I figure it's a probably good idea to recap and regroup where we currently are as the Edmonton Oilers heading into tomorrow. Salary cap space, I was incorrect on that. We'll get to a matter of moments, but if you're new to the channel right now, friends, I need you to consider, look at this new graphic, hitting that subscribe button here on Dolynny TV. I would love to have you come here first tomorrow as part of your trade, free agency, whatever happens tomorrow. I want to be part of it in, of course, covering that for you. So if you'd be so kind to hit that subscribe button, that would be great. That aside, well, we know that Mattias Janmark is an Edmonton Oiler for yet another year. Janmark has signed a one-year deal with the Edmonton Oilers for an AAV of $1 million. So it was reported earlier this week that Mattias Janmark was likely to sign about a $1.1 million deal. So Ken Holland, Mattias Janmark's agent, sharpen the pencil, get it down to $1 million, save $100,000 against the cap for somebody else in the end of negotiations. So that is great. This deal, I don't care what you think of it in terms of basically dollar contract years length, it is perfect. Okay, I'm going to tell you, this is exactly what the Oilers needed. Would it be nice to keep both Bjugstad and Janmark? Yes, but I believe we're only keeping one, and the way the lineup stacks out for the Edmonton Oilers, 1 through 3 in terms of the lines, and then your fourth line wingers, your 2 extra players in the 11-7, Mattias Janmark is a perfect guy to keep around. Now, obviously, I believe the door is still open to Bjugstad, who we would assume is only available to us at $775,000 or $800,000 against the salary cap. That salary cap we're talking about, thanks to Mattias Janmark, we're sitting around that 7.9 number remaining today. So there's a lot of work yet to be done for the Oilers. That's kind of the number I've heard floating around. You would estimate that Bouchard and, of course, Ryan McLeod take up about 5.5 of that, leaving you somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 contracts available at the NHL level. Okay, you've got Janmark signed, so you've got Foegele, Janmark, Derek Ryan. You've got, yes, indeed, 2 Ryan McLeod. So those are your bottom line wingers right there, right? You've got then your top 6 of Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, Kane, McDavid, and Hyman. So you've got 9 total signed. You're missing 2 guys. You've got room for 2 guys, whether it be Dylan Holloway, who I believe will 100% be there. And then that leaves us with Connor Brown, who is likely to be an Edmonton Oiler, another ex-Toronto Maple Leaf, set to join the Edmonton Oilers on July 1st. A few weeks back, I guaranteed that that would happen. And today's update obviously making it seem as though Connor Brown to the Oilers is all but done, because Connor Brown has to say it's done. That's kind of the situation we find ourselves in. Of course, the player can change his mind. It's up to him, and nothing can officially happen until tomorrow. The Oilers have done absolutely everything they can to make it happen tomorrow. Now it just needs a signature on the contract when it is available to be signed tomorrow, and then that determines what happens for the Oilers tomorrow. So yes, right, either way, whether Dylan Holloway be an NHL player next year or, of course, Connor Brown plus another guy, that's kind of how your roster shakes out right there. I'm overestimating a little bit on the salary cap. I'm hoping Bouchard comes in at 3.5. I'm hoping Ryan McLeod comes in around 1.2. And you can kind of see with those 2 numbers compared to the 5.5 combined, you can start clawing back another contract space. So there is potential here that the Edmonton Oilers have a ton available to themselves coming into tomorrow. We don't know if they're going to side Bouchard and McLeod tomorrow, tonight, when it'll happen. We've obviously been active today signing Mattias Janmark, so We'll see what ends up coming out of it right now, but I would estimate that for the Edmonton Oilers, at current, we assume that McLeod and Bouchard have priority over everything else because of the way the forward group stacks up right now. You don't have too many contracts signed, so you would assume that you have to try and get these guys settled sooner than later if you want to fill out the roster before all the players available to you are gone. So that's the short end of that, right? The Oilers' main actual focus news, that is the short end of it all, right? It's just bang, Janmark signed 1 year, $1 million, McLeod and Bouchard, and of course Connor Brown. That's the Oilers. Now you talk about two ex-Edmonton Oilers here who we have to keep tabs on as well going into free agency because they are free and dandy to once again sign with the Oilers for a lesser cost, if the case may be, with Kailer Yamamoto, who, right, fans, love him, hate him, whatever the case might be, but at a reduced, maybe league minimum cost, I see no reason why you wouldn't re-sign Kailer Yamamoto as the Edmonton Oilers, bring him back. Of course, you know what you're getting, you know what you've got, he loves the room, it is what it is, away you go. Are there hard feelings? Is it sour between the Oilers and Yamamoto for reducing the cost of the contract? Potentially, who knows? Don't really care because at the end of the day, it's likely to not happen. So that's where we find ourselves on that one. Klim Kostin goes unqualified by the Detroit Red Wings, which brings us to, I thought they were trading for him because they were going to sign him. And that was kind of what we were hearing, right? If Steve Yzerman wants to sign Klim Kostin, it'll get done. So either Klim Kostin didn't want to sign with Detroit and is going back to the KHL, or Steve Yzerman just did not care about it and did the Oilers and his former GM Ken Holland a solid by buying out Kailer Yamamoto. Not really sure how that all plays out and what the behind-the-scenes discussions were, but even with Klim Kostin not signing in Detroit, I assume he is unlikely to return to Edmonton as well at whatever deal he was previously looking for, because obviously we're talking about league minimum. And that brings me to my final point for tonight as we kind of go through everything Edmonton Oilers going into tomorrow night and tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon, is the fact that I am literally sitting here banking on the Oilers doing nothing tomorrow, right? Sign Connor Brown, sign a depth defenseman, shut her down. That's what I assume the Oilers will do tomorrow, right? You've kind of heard, even from the Oilers reporters themselves, is it's kind of like, the Oilers are shoring up the right side. What that looks like, pretty limited, but they're going to do it a little bit, and then we're going to call it a day. That's kind of the gist, and that's what I'm hoping for, because as an Oilers fan, I think we're very tendency-driven to get excited about big days like trade deadline day, big days like free agency, big days like the draft. And now I've gone through both the trade deadline this year and the NHL draft this year where big things were supposed to happen. And the biggest thing that happened for the Edmonton Oilers on trade deadline day was the fact of, hold up, Ken Holland's press conference has been moved back, right? That's literally the biggest thing that happened that day because it's the only thing that kept us watching. Secondary to that, the NHL draft, round 1, no first round draft pick. And secondary to that, no Kailer Yamamoto, no Cody Ceci, no Brett Kulak trade in that first round, so it was pretty bland. Second round, sure, we start the day off with a banger. Kailer Yamamoto and Klim Kostin, two pivotal pieces to the Oilers roster in the playoffs last year, traded for nothing. So really not that exciting. And then today, going into the draft, or into free agency, we've got Mattias Janmark signed, huge, right? This is great. But now tomorrow, because this is done, I expect very limited action. Connor Brown becomes an Edmonton Oiler. That is a foregone conclusion in my mind, unless something drastic happens, right? If you see Connor Brown signed for $4 million somewhere, obviously that's going to beat out what the Oilers are offering, just plain and dandy. But it's Connor Brown plus either a depth forward or a depth defenseman. Done and done, run it back. That's kind of the situation we have going in. Obviously, the summer, other teams' needs and stuff will dictate whether the Oilers make more moves, whether the Oilers make another move. What ends up happening is just kind of play it by ear at this point. So we're about to enter a very exciting weekend, and then it's about to be very, very quiet, I feel, here over the next several weeks to months in Oilers land, right? We kind of go July to August 31st, July 1st to August 31st You get a good weekend of fun this weekend, July long weekend, and then you really die down for the next 57 days. Good thing I've got a wedding booked for the end of August, right? That's huge. That's a good little time to meet up with the boys and get going and enjoy a time, because at least I'll have something to do being in a wedding party for a good buddy's wedding, instead of just sitting here trying to push the envelope on mediocre rumors about the Oilers. So that's the recap. I don't really think there's much else to look at other than kind of my targets, right? To look at it here, I thought I'd kind of wrap it up, but let's keep going. I've got plenty to go, and I guess last night, by me not repeating myself a whole bunch and actually going through a whole bunch of points, I got a bunch of good feedback in the comments section last night. So I'll keep this going for right now. Is just the forward market for the NHL is flooded with top tier talent in terms of dollar range availability for the Oilers, right? There are a ton of players who have not been qualified by their teams. I think the names you've seen today is like Devin Sprong, no matter what. Nate Bastian's another name that really tickles kind of my interest as an Oilers fan. I think you've seen Blake Wheeler's been bought out by the Winnipeg Jets. You've seen Josh Bailey is also available from formerly the Islanders, now the Chicago Blackhawks. Buyout players are available. Obviously, we've talked about Yamamoto, but just across the NHL, there's a ton of players, right? Ryan Poling, another guy that was not qualified, a guy that you could definitely look at. Denis Gurianov. Like, there's a ton of guys that if they're still available next week, week after, we could scoop in there with that limited cap space and that one forward roster spot available and potentially get a dollar premium player. Okay? Think about it. Think about it like the McDonald's value menu, right? You're talking about a guy who technically should be a $1.5 to $2 to $3 million player, but no team can afford his services at that charge. So you're signing him for $775 this year. He's gone. He helps you win a cup. Bye-bye, right? That's where we find ourselves right now. And that's obviously the McDonald's value menu, right? It's a McDouble for $1.39 or whatever it used to be back in the day, right? Hey, you know what? If you got coffee money, you can have a cheeseburger. So back in the day, that's how we used to shop. And that is more or less the best way I can put how the Oilers will be shopping once they sign Connor Brown and whoever else they sign tomorrow, because that's really all that's going to be available to us at the end of the day. Even Raphael Lavoie likely and should only be on a $775 deal coming up whenever he signs. So friends, I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. Thank you so much for spending your Friday evening or your Saturday morning or your Saturday afternoon, if you're some reason watching this and not my signing video about Connor Brown. Thank you for watching this on your July long weekend. I really appreciate you being along for the ride. I guess this is closing time, friends. This is the end of the chapter that was the 2022-2023 NHL season. This is the end all be all. We move officially into the new season tomorrow. And I just want to say, to wrap this up nice with a bow and elongate it a little bit more, it has been an absolute wild ride. You guys have been fantastic to me in my return back to YouTube, and I cannot wait to see what is on the horizon this next year as we run back year number 2 of the return here on Dolynny TV, doing this whole crazy Edmonton Oilers thing. Thank you so much for being along for the ride. Enjoy Canada Day long weekend. I hope you can tune in when you have a chance. If you're out at the campsite the rest of the weekend and you have no service, hey, that's all right. We'll catch you when we can. And the videos, they ain't going nowhere. Friends, I am up on out of here.